So now that we've gone through all those basic concepts, I'd like to go through a few examples that illustrate some of the concepts that we've covered earlier. So here in this example, we have a line of 3 redstone lamps. The first block in the line that I'm pointing at here is being strongly powered through this repeater. And we can tell that it's strongly powered because this piece of redstone dust under here is being lit up despite the fact that I've cut off the connection to this redstone dust, which would otherwise go down the side, by placing this block. Now, the redstone lamp being strongly powered here is powering this redstone wire, which is then weakly powering the next redstone lamp. We can tell that it's weakly powered because this dot of redstone dust here is not lit up, but this repeater is. Finally, we have this last block that is lit up, but only because it's being activated. And we can tell that because this repeater is not lit up. Now next to that, we have essentially the same arrangement of redstone blocks. We have the strongly powered one, the weakly powered one, and the one that is merely being activated. Now the difference here is that we placed a 4th block on top of the activated one, and this one actually is being weakly powered, and that's because of the shape of this redstone wire pointing into the side of it, and we can tell that it's being weakly powered because this redstone repeater is lit up. In this example, we've got a pair of droppers, one facing into the back of the other, and they're both pointing up. And so we have a line of droppers going vertically. It's called a dropper vader. It's a cute name for that. And if we merely activated these 2 droppers, we'd have to find a way to activate them both. But in this case, we have this repeater connected to the side of the lower dropper. And since it's a solid block, it can be powered. And so when we power the lower dropper, it's activated, but it also activates its neighbor. And as a result, we're able to actually zip a single item through both droppers in a single click. Now, when I say click, what I mean here is that we're going to send a rising pulse where the redstone input goes from low to high, and that is what activates a dropper and makes it eject an item. Now, there's some interesting quirks of redstone timing. In the other case, we had a repeater, which is timed a little differently from redstone dust. And so in this case, we're powering the lower dropper just the same, but it can take more than one rising edge of redstone input in order to get an item through both droppers. Now, I mentioned earlier how certain power sources like switches will not only power strongly the block that they're attached to, but also what appears to be an air block that they're contained in. So in the first example, we've got a switch on top of a block, and there are actually 9 different places that we can take the power from. And these are the 4 sides of the block that the switch is attached to, the 4 sides of the switch itself, and the spot directly below the block that the switch is attached to. In this case, we've got a switch attached to the bottom of a block. So as you can see, you can get power from the 4 sides of the switch itself, and the 4 sides of the block that the switch is attached to, and the space immediately below the switch, and also the spot on top of the block that the switch is attached to. And that gives us 10 different places where we can take redstone power from. And finally, we've got a switch attached to the side of a block, and there are 9 different places where we can get power from in this case, and these would be the 3 sides around the switch, the 3 sides around the block the switch is attached to, the top of the block that the switch is attached to, the space immediately below that, and the space immediately below the switch. In all of these cases, there are actually 10 different locations where you could get redstone power from. The problem is that you can't have redstone dust floating out in midair right above a switch. On the other hand, all 10 places are where you could put an activatable block like a piston or a dropper, and it would activate when the switch or other input device was enabled. And so to illustrate that, I've put a switch on a block and placed redstone lamps in all positions that can be activated. Now keep in mind that these lamps, for instance, aren't powered, they're just being activated because they're neighboring the switch or the block that the switch is attached to. And just for fun, I've done the same thing with pistons. Earlier I'd mentioned that powered redstone dust on top of a block actually powers that block. And it's true the other way. If the block is strongly powered, as in this example, then the redstone dust on top of the block will be powered by that block. But then look at this example. Here we've got some redstone dust that is powered up the side of a block because it's all being powered by this switch. Now if I place another block right here, right where I've got it highlighted, then it actually cuts off this connection. And so as you can see, this redstone dot here isn't being powered because the block that it's on is only being weakly powered through the redstone dust attached to the switch. Earlier I'd mentioned a distinction between opaque and transparent blocks. Now opaque blocks can have power states, which means that if you could send a redstone signal into them, then they can activate neighboring blocks. Transparent ones can't. There's no power state for them, so they can't activate neighbors because they can't be powered. Now in this example, we've got a glowstone block in between two redstone lamps, and being a transparent block, this glowstone can't be powered, but you can put redstone dust on top. As a result, we can transmit power across the transparent block, and we can see that the two redstone lamps, which are solid blocks, are powered, while the glowstone isn't powered, which we can tell by the fact that the repeater is not lit up. In fact, slabs are commonly used for this purpose. So here we've got some redstone lamps, and where the redstone runs over the full blocks, they're being powered, thereby activating the redstone lamps. But when it runs over the slab, the lamp isn't activated. Now I could have done this with pistons, except interestingly enough, they wouldn't have behaved as expected, which brings me to my next topic.